shot in Minneapolis. This is Ari Melber anchoring, and I want to tell you a little bit of what we're seeing because we've been tracking this rather emotional scene. What you see here as they try to create some wider space, which at times has become a little bit chaotic, but mostly in control as we've been tracking this in our newsroom, is you're looking at Terrance Floyd here. He is, of course, the brother of George Floyd, the individual who was arrested and then killed. Now, according to authorities, a third-degree murder, as they've charged it, in Minneapolis, which has set off these 6 days of protests. So we've been tracking here, and what you're seeing is a bit of an impromptu walk or march, if you want to call it that, with a scrum of media and other onlookers. As Mr. Terrance Floyd continues to do something that obviously no one wants to do for their family, which is do a public mourning, do this grieving as it continues. An incident that has become obviously captivating and political in nature across the whole country. And so let's listen in and watch this a little bit. We have some guests standing by, but we wanted to show you what we're seeing as it unfolds here in Minneapolis. Terrance Floyd, the brother of George Floyd. Cool.
Really are nice.
Don't take me. This is live footage you're seeing. This is happening right now in Minneapolis. Terrance Floyd, brother of George Floyd, trying to make his way through this walk. You can imagine, given everything that we've been through, what this is to people on the streets of Minneapolis, both the media, which you can see, ourselves included, but other scrum of media trying to track this, and other citizens and onlookers and individuals there all gathered to the point that that Mr. Floyd's retinue here is trying to tell people to keep moving, trying to get space. Our cameras are trying to keep up with it. The other thing I can tell you is we've been tracking this, and you can see also many of the commemorations and flowers and other ways that people are marking this. But one of the things we saw on this camera was the face masks of both Mr. Floyd and others around him, which by our sites appear to be memorial face masks, an obvious sign of the times we are in, marking this death, but also observing the CDC guidelines to wear masks in public when you are near people. Those masks, as best I could make them out, appeared to say something to the effect of justice for Floyd, and we're watching them continue to move through here. As we watch this scene, I want to bring in one of our guests who's standing by, an expert on many of these issues, who's worked with President Obama, who's been speaking out on many aspects of this, and that is Cornell Belcher, who's known to our audience. Just to tell people, this is Ari Melber anchoring, and Cornell, I think we're going to keep an eye on this scene, this attempted march, if you will. But I wanted to bring you in as someone who's worked on these issues, who's worked for President Obama, and I saw you quoted in articles out today looking at the challenge both for the community as well as for Joe Biden, who's trying to walk this line. And I'm just curious, as we look at this scene, Cornell, your thoughts today?
My thoughts is you have such an outpouring of emotion and frustration around this issue well, just something that it was quite a while that we had tenure. All right, I have data that 2016 would show younger African discrimination and criminal justice wasn't a secondary issue consideration, but it was a top tier issue consideration, and their voices haven't been heard. And when you look back at the silent sort of protests of Kaepernick, you know, already 70% of white Americans didn't approve of that silent protest, right? So we can't continue to kick the can down the road or you get this sort of action where we're all touched, where all of our communities are impacted. We have to start taking these issues of injustice more seriously. They must be in the mainstream of politics, not on the side or marginalized by our politics.
Cornell Belcher is speaking to us, the former pollster for President Obama, among other roles, as we look at this rather emotional scene of Terrance Floyd here. Appears to be getting closer to the ground in one of the sites of this memorial. I believe they're getting down and praying. Again, this is all unfolding live. Why don't we listen to this for a moment, Cornell, and discuss on the other side?
Fuck back. Fuck back. Watch your mouth, bro. Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth.
The live scene in Minneapolis here as George Floyd's brother, Terrance Floyd, leads this impromptu memorial. And you can hear as he is, you see him there on the ground with the people accompanying him sitting down, and you can hear the calls to take a knee. Take a knee. This is quite a moment here. Take a knee, a reference to what our guest Cornell Belcher, who joins us momentarily, was just discussing the civil rights protest by Colin Kaepernick, which tragically has overlapped with the brutish image and reality of an officer using that knee to kill someone during an arrest, to kill Mr. Floyd's brother, who we see here. This is the news, so we're tracking this as we go. We were listening to it for several moments uninterrupted. Cornell, I want to invite you back in and say, if you could share with us what you see, what you hear, what you feel looking at this a very public, very raw memorial in this city of Minneapolis, in this time in America, as another black man is mourned, having died at the hands of the police. Cornell.
I feel it's time's up for the injustice. And I also feel profoundly sad about where the state we are in America right now. And when you look at these images of them taking a knee and praying, I'm also reminded that right now we don't have a lot of moral leadership. These are at the head of our country right now. I think one of the most important aspects or powers of the White House and presidency is the moral power, the moral authority, whether it be Reagan after the shuttle explosion, or it be Bush after 9/11, or Clinton after the federal building bombing. The healing aspect and power of the White House is sort of the ideal of unifying and calling Americans together around a common goal and bringing Americans together and sort of talking, showing us our commonality and focusing us on our better angels that we've had in prior presidents, whether it be Democrat or Republican. I can disagree with a lot of the policy standpoints of some of the Republican presidents, but the moral authority and certainly their love for the country, the idea that we must sort of use that moral authority to unite the country. That's what's missing in the country right now. We desperately need it. We desperately need someone to unite the country.
Cornell, let's listen in. I'm going to come back to you. Let's listen to how they're wrapping this chant. We are watching this incredibly raw and emotional scene, this impromptu memorial and at times peaceful protest in Minneapolis. You're looking at Terrance Floyd, George Floyd's brother. We saw chants from the crowd. It seemed to come very organically. People saying, "Take a knee," as protest, then saying, "Say the name," and the chants of George Floyd. Say their names, which is something we've heard from activists and protesters throughout. Remembering who these people are. Let's listen in a little more.
You have to be respectful. I know you want a story, but it's not about your story. So you have to be respectful. Civil rights leader in Brooklyn, New York. We came today with a delegation that you will hear from. The delegation consists of Attorney Sanford Rubenstein, community activist Chris Banks, the brother of George Floyd, Terrance Floyd. We came all the way, flew all the way here for simply one message. We came in solidarity of those who are in and the desire to be locked up. And we will not rest until they get locked up. And once that happens, if they want peace, we'll give them peace when you give us justice. Just like we have a left hand and a right hand, we want peace on the left and justice on the right. Peace on the left, justice on the right. Peace on the left, justice on the right. Peace on the left,
Making it
justice on the right. Peace on the left, justice on the right. Peace on the left, justice on the right. Peace on the left, justice on the right. You are now here from his brother who traveled with us, who has to endure watching his blood brother die in the hands of the corrupt police. Let us respect him as he speaks at this time. Please, let us hear by the sound of a round of applause for our dear brother, the brother of Terrance Floyd, Terrance Floyd. Terrance Floyd is the brother of George Floyd. Let us hear from him.
Let's talk to me.
Hello.
Let's see.
I understand y'all upset. But like it was already said, I doubt y'all half as upset as I am. So if I'm not over here wilding out, if I'm not over here blowing up stuff, if I'm not over here messing up my community,
Come on.
then what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? Y'all doing nothing. Because that's not going to bring my brother back at all. It may feel good for the moment, just like when you drink. But when they come down, you're gonna wonder what you did.
That's right.
Listen.
So true.
My family is a peaceful family. My family is God-fearing. Yeah, we upset. But we're not going to take it. We're not going to be repetitious. In every case of police brutality, the same thing has been happening. Y'all protest, y'all destroy stuff, and if they don't move, you know why they don't move? Because it's not their stuff, it's our stuff. So they want us to destroy our stuff.
Come on, God.
They're not going to move.
Listen.
So let's do this another way.
That's right. Come on now, bro.
Let's do this another way. Y'all right. Let's do this another way. Let's stop thinking that our voice don't matter
That's right.
and vote.
There you go.
Not just vote for the president, vote for the preliminaries, vote for everybody. Educate yourself. Educate yourself. Don't wait for somebody else to tell you who's who. Educate yourself and know who you're voting for. And that's how we gonna hit them. Because it's a lot of us. It's a lot of us.
That's right.
It's a lot of us. And we still gonna do this peacefully. switch it up, y'all. Let's switch it up.
Yes. Amen.
Do this peacefully. Please. My brother moved here from Houston. And I used to talk to him on the phone. He loved it here. He started driving truck. He was good. So I highly doubt. No, I don't know. I know. He would not want y'all to be doing this. And I'm not saying the people here whoever's doing it. Relax. Now, like Reverend McCall said, peace on the left.
Justice on the right.
Y'all forgot already?
That's on the right.
Peace on the left.
Justice on the right. Peace on the left. Justice on the right. Peace on the left. Justice on the right. Peace on the left. Justice on the right.
What side is that? What side is that? Peace on the left. Justice on the right. Right. That's what I'm saying. That's what I want to see. Peace on the left. Peace on the left. Peace on the left. Peace on the left. That's what I'm talking about. On behalf of the Floyd family, thank you. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the flowers. Thank you for the memorials. Thank you. Now, before I go, I just want to hear this again. What's his name?
John Floyd.
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 George!
Floyd.
George!
Floyd.
George!
Floyd.
George!
Floyd. Walk on train.
I thank y'all.
One down. One down.
We have been listening to the impromptu memorial and remarks, as it still goes. You see here, fists in the air, by Terrance Floyd, who is the brother of George Floyd, as well as the friends and associates that he brought to this memorial, including his civil rights attorney. This was a remarkable scene that we have just witnessed and been listening to, and I want to underscore here, 1:07 p.m. in Minneapolis. This is Ari Melber anchoring. I want to underscore some of what we just heard from Terrance Floyd. Terrance Floyd, of course, is the brother. He is mourning. He is grieving. You can see this was a makeshift memorial with the sound quality that we were struggling with. Of course, they're using just a handheld amplification device. They're walking through this town. They were clearing the area as best they could, and the chants continue. But I want to report for you some of what we heard from Terrance Floyd. He said to the gathered group, "I'm more upset than anyone. And if I'm not wilding out, no one else should be." He addressed not only the people in Minneapolis, but really the people who have looted in parts around the country. He said, "What are y'all doing? You're not going to bring my brother back like this." And then he said, "They want us to destroy ourselves. Let's not do that. Let's do this another way." Let's listen in because he's speaking again. I want to hear this. We're going back to Terrance Floyd.
I know this is about my brothers, but I want to say something. I went to school. I knew Sharpell, and I knew in all these other cases that's going on. You see the protesting. You see everything. But then, when after a while, they out of the scene. Nobody's saying nothing. This is what I've been saying to people on Facebook, Instagram. I've been saying this. Keep my brother's name ringing. 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 What's his name? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. When you talk about Sean Bell, when you talk about Eric Garner, we have with us the lawyer who has been on the front lines across this country dealing with this. Let us welcome Attorney Sanford Rubenstein.
We're listening here to part of this protest. One of the civil rights lawyers I mentioned earlier, Sanford Rubenstein, now speaking. We're going to keep an eye on this, and anytime we hear from the Floyd family or the individuals that will go back to it, I have several of our experts and guests standing by. I want to bring in Reverend Al Sharpton,